So good morning, everybody. Delighted to spend sort of 15 minutes with you this morning. It builds on the back of a really good day yesterday. We had our staff awards call yesterday, so there may be a number of you on that as well. Really great to just acknowledge both individual achievements and team achievements across what has been, a massively busy year for all of us. So, and I want to touch on that a little bit in this introduction. Excuse me. I also want to take the opportunity to remind you that we've got our Tutor and Learner Awards later in the year as well. So, please make that a really, really difficult job for us by flooding us with nominations. We can only judge the nominations that we receive. So, when the communication comes out around both the Tutor and Learner Awards, please engage with that. Please make, my job, John's job, Pat's job really difficult by, there being lots and lots of applications. So I'd encourage you to do that. As I alluded to, it's been a massively busy year for us. The amount of change that we're trying to drive through the organisation, necessary change and improvement is massive, and that hasn't just happened, by chance. It's down to everybody's hard work. Everybody's really sort of rolled their sleeves up and got stuck in this year, and we've needed to do that for a number of reasons. We needed to do the digital transformation program that we've undertaken, and we're so close now. Launching that 24th of April, the new website, the new student record system, it will make a massive difference. It's one of the first things that I heard as I joined the organisation, that WeMiss wasn't fit for purpose. It was holding us back. It was making everybody's life more difficult. So we listened to that and decided to make those changes. So a long road later, and we're almost there, and it will make a difference, and people will notice that difference both in the front end website and for us on this call in our back end student record system. And my hope as well is that it will free up our VLE canvas to be a VLE and not have to do multiple things because of the links with WeMiss. So I'm really hopeful that the launch of that goes well. And then it's continuous improvement. So it isn't, we've built the new website, stop, don't touch it again for another 10, 20, 50 years. This will now be an annual cycle of improvement. So as you engage with the new systems, as you engage with the training, the big training program that we're rolling out, please let us know, feedback. There will be issues, we're aware of that, but let's work together to get into that continuous improvement cycle so that we know, that we can keep building on what will be, really good platforms for us. So I'd encourage you to engage with that, because it's, we're in our 120th year as an organisation, but we're almost in a startup environment. And I'll explain what I mean by that. For 115, 17 years, 99% of our provision was physical classroom-based provision, local venues, face-to-face. And then for 2 years, we've been almost 100% an online provider. We've successfully moved because of, again, all the effort and hard work of updating your teaching and learning practices, updating the way we do things behind the scenes. We've had a really successful short period as, practically an online provider, 90% of our work, 95% of our work being virtual. Now we're a true hybrid provider. We're right back to a 50-50 mix between online provision and physical face-to-face provision, and that is brand new for us. We have never done that before in our 120 years history, and that's why for me I'm saying it feels like a startup environment. In the same way as we learned on the job through COVID and everybody just threw themselves at it, we knew we needed to do it, we knew we needed to carry on being there for our learners. It's almost the same challenge now in this hybrid situation. How do we keep learning? How do we learn as we go? How do we adapt our practice so that, again, we can meet the various needs of all of our learners, be them those that are now converted to doing online work, being, it's more accessible, they can work with people from right across the country, right the way through to those that aren't as comfortable online, have never been as comfortable online, want that sort of social and physical contact with others. So it's a real exciting opportunity, I think, for us to really ask ourselves how we manage that now going forward, because I think that is our new reality. I don't think we're never going to be 100% online provider. It's not who we are. But I don't think we're ever going back to 90% of our provision being face-to-face in physical environments as well. So what does that mean for us? How do we work together with that single aim of meeting as many learner needs as possible? So that's where we are. I think that's where we find ourselves. You'll also know that on the external sort of the operating environment, we've been reclassified by the ONS as a public sector body, along with all the colleges in England. So we're working through with the ESFA what that means. And we're working through with the Charity Commission what that means as well, because it comes with some additional restrictions around managing public money and how we do that. But it comes with some real benefits as well. So we've just, people may have seen it in FE Week, they may have seen it on Department of Education circulars. We've just been informed that we've been allocated £8.6 million of capital funding for over the next 6 years. And that is really, really significant for us. It means that we can carry on investing in our existing learning centres. And it means we can really think now about new learning centres up and down the country. It is a significant investment from DFE in the WEA, and we'll use that as wisely as we can. So that's a real benefit, I think, and you'll hear more about that as we go along. So big changes there. We also know that there's further devolution coming. So again, in places like Derby, Nottinghamshire, we're going to be devolved again. We know that multiply funding carries on flowing into both the WEA and into the country at large. So we're just going into the second year of multiply. And for anybody on this call that's been involved in our online resources and what we've built to deliver multiply programs, just a massive congratulations to you, because it's up there with some of the best work that I've seen us produce. It is really, really good. So if you haven't engaged with that multiply resource yet, try and reach out, try and have a look at it, because it is really, really good and adaptable across many, many subject areas, I think. So that's a good piece of news as well for us. So I'll probably pause at that point, actually, because it was in for 20 minutes this session, but I'm happy to answer. Take 5 minutes. I probably need to go at 1:15 if that's okay, but I'll take 5 minutes to answer questions. I've just seen one pop up in the chat, which is, what is Multiply? So Multiply was it's the name of the program, the government funded program to improve numeracy across the country. So it was the first allocation out of what they call the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which was the replacement for European funds. So it's there, it's a good program. We're glad that the government are investing in numeracy. We hope and keep pushing them to invest in literacy as well, because that's a massive issue in this country, but it's a good start. So, we're engaging with that. We're working right across the country with different local authorities and mayoral combined authorities to deliver Multiply. So it's that numeracy, embedding numeracy into our curriculum. Justina, I don't know whether you can see other. I
was just going to say, Simon. Yeah, I'm just monitoring the chat. Somebody's asked, Gillian Hunt, Simon's asked, does becoming a public sector body affect local authority funding? That might be a good one to answer.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Our hope is, for those of you may know this, so in most devolved areas of the country, we're treated as a grant funded provider. Liverpool and Manchester were treating us as a contracted provider, so making us tender for work against the private sector. Obviously, we've got an issue in Tees Valley at the moment as well, but my hope is, and more than a hope, what we'll be pointing out to devolved authorities, existing and new ones, is that we are a public body now. So why would you do anything but grant fund us? Because it's exactly, again, it always has been, but it's even clearer now that it's exactly the same status as colleges. So if you're grant funding your colleges, why aren't you grant funding the WEA? So that's the argument that we will make. So I think it is helpful in that regard.
And Sarah said in her session later, they were going to be looking at some of the Multiply resources. So that was really good that people will get to see them today.
Brilliant. Really good.
Somebody's just asking, Simon, it might not be enough time, but could you tell about the future of the cultural programme with many branches now closing?
Yeah, I was down in Chelmsford. I don't know if there are people on the call that were down there, but I was down in Chelmsford with the Essex Federation on Monday. Again, recommitting to our cultural programme. If you think about the strategy, we've got 3 pillars. We've got that pillar which is skills for work and skills for job. Increasingly, that's what the state wants to fund. We're growing our provision there. That's great. It's right that we do that because it's important. But we've also got skills for life, and we've got skills that build communities. And that is absolutely where our cultural programme fits in. But it has to change. We know that. We were talking about that down in Essex. We have to really think through what our learners want and need from a cultural programme. It can't just be the same courses repeated year after year for the same people. It's not right. It's not right in terms of our charitable mission. And it breaks some of the funding rules. So there may be a future where those that can afford to pay have to pay a little bit more to access the courses that they want to access on a continuous basis, if you like, every year doing something very similar. But actually, I still want this to be a really strong cultural programme, but it will have to shift a little bit from where we are now. But happy to carry on talking about that. Happy to pick that up through these regional roadshows. We went all around the country this year. We'll go all around the country again this coming year as well. So, more than happy to carry on that conversation. It's who we are. It's part of our charitable mission. It's here to stay, but it will have to change from where it is today. I can probably say 1 or 2 more, Jodie, and then I'm going to have to run if that's okay, because I'm on my way to Northern College for people that might know where Northern College is up near Barnsley.
Just as another one just asked from Alan Carter, just the change in the structure change of what we are. It says, does the change in structure change our registered mission with the Charity Commission?
Really, really good question. My short answer is no, it doesn't, and we will fight like crazy to make sure that it doesn't. We are a non-exempt charity, which is different from some of the academies and colleges that hold charitable status because they're exempt charities. There's a memorandum of understanding between the Charity Commission and the Department for Education, which shows what the division of regulation and powers are of each body. We're actively working with them now to update that because it doesn't make sense given the change in status. So we are not, I'm not giving up our charitable status for anybody, frankly. So we've been around 120 years as a charity. I want us to be there for the next 120 years.
And the last one, somebody's just asked Richard, is there a plan to increase general PR related marketing?
Yeah, again, this comes up regularly. It came up in at the Ethics Federation in Chelmsford on Monday. We've gone around curriculum planning, particularly for the cultural programme, in a different way. We're trying to get a really solid curriculum. We're trying to make sure that it's learner-led. And actually, if we, sometimes the diversity of our offer, something for everybody at the WEA, all called slightly different things. So the naming conventions are all over the place. There's a course available here, not available there. It's quite difficult to market that on a national basis. But actually, if we can get to a more, what do I want to say? How do I want to, just a curriculum that makes more sense overall, that's easier to understand overall, then it makes the marketing a little bit easier. For those that engage with social media, you'll know that our social media marketing is fantastic. It's gone up and up and up. And that is part of the marketing strategy. The conversation at the Essex Federation was, should we be paying for ads in publications like Saga? Or should we carry on paying for targeted Facebook ads? There's probably room for both. But actually, the challenge is, let's get a curriculum that makes sense, that's easy to describe, that people will understand what the types of courses we're running are, where they are physically, or virtually, and then let's go out and market as best we can. But it will be a combination of hard collateral marketing and social media marketing, I think, going forward. I think that's right. The team are good at it. So. Good. I'm going to stop there if that's okay, Jodie, Justina. Thank you. As I say, it's really, really great to see what we're up to. 190 people on the call this morning. Thank you for your ongoing hard work and support. enjoy the day. There's some really important topics on today. I've had a quick look through the agenda for the day. So enjoy that. Thank you again. Keep up the really good work that I know you're all doing. And I look forward to coming back on one of these days and running through some Q&As again. It's really valuable. So thank you. And then enjoy the weekend when it arrives. Okay. Thanks everyone. I'll leave you there.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Simon. Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye.
So the next session will be led by Tracy Lawman. Tracy, are you ready?
I am ready, Justina. Thank you very much. So I'm Tracy Lawman. I'm Senior People Experience Manager at the WEA, and part of my role is to work with the ED&I working group on all ED&I related initiatives across the organisation. So can we see the next slide on the screen, which relates to outcomes?
Yes.
Brilliant, thank you. So in today's session, we're going to cover equality, diversity and inclusion, and also FREDIE principles and how they extend upon equality, diversity and inclusion. We'll also touch upon strategies that can be used in the classroom that could enable educators to incorporate the FREDIE principles when teaching and learning. There'll also be the opportunity at the end of the session to ask any ED&I related questions. So what is equality, diversity and inclusion at a very basic level? Equality means that everyone is treated the same, they're treated fairly, have the same opportunities, but in some circumstances and for some learners, equality isn't appropriate and we need to be working towards equity. Equity is slightly different from equality in that it really recognises each person has different circumstances. And because of those different circumstances, the individual has different needs and they need levels of support, enable them to take full advantage of equal opportunities. Diversity means that we recognise, we respect, and really welcome everyone's different backgrounds, identities and experiences, take people for the individuals that they are. We promote diversity and celebrate those differences for each and every person and every learner. And inclusion means that everyone is encouraged to retain their uniqueness. They're not singled out for being different and they have a real sense of belonging and being valued. Inclusion is important because it goes a step further than diversity. When we promote diversity, it can sometimes be criticised as a tick box exercise that's often driven by data. So for an example, an organisation or a classroom could claim to be diverse based on the number of learners and staff who meet certain criteria. But for us to be truly inclusive as an organisation and in the classroom, we need to ensure that every learner and every member of that diverse community is nurtured, that we celebrate them and that they feel secure and included within their learning community. So FREDIE and the FREDIE principles can be seen as an extension really of equality, diversity, inclusion, but it adds in the additional principles of fairness and respect to the equality and diversity agenda. And it also really recognises the importance of engaging with our learners and colleagues. So when we look at fairness, we're talking about that equity. So regardless of background or circumstances of our learners, are we fair to them all? And is that a reality for them? When we're looking at respect, it's the norm, and it should be the norm that when we set the ground rules for that classroom, that absolutely zero tolerance takes place in forms of discrimination towards our learners. Equality of opportunity should be embedded in the consideration of our learners and their development, and diversity should be celebrated with our learners feeling that they belong. Inclusion should be widely understood and our learners feel valued and listened to. And overall, when we're embedding those FREDIE principles into our learning, then learners will be engaged with each other, but also with the FREDIE principles and the ethos of them as well. So why is FREDIE important, and why should we better understand equality, diversity and inclusion? It's a real opportunity. Equality and diversity and the FREDIE principles are an opportunity to engage with our learners. We can show them through the teaching that you carry out how ED&I can be applied to solve real life problems. In turn, this then helps learners to develop personal and social skills that will be useful to them, not just in the workplace, but in social situations too. It makes it easier for learners to learn and to keep up in class, and also reduces tension by helping learners to get on better with each other. I'm sure you're aware, but as educators, we need to have due regard to the need to eliminate unlawful discrimination, harassment and victimisation, and other conduct prohibited by the Equality Act 2010. As educators, we should advance equality of opportunity between people who share protected characteristic and those who do not, and also foster good relations between people who share protected characteristics and also with those who do not. The Equality Act explains that having due regard for advancing equality involves removing or minimising disadvantages suffered by people due to their protected characteristics. And it also involves taking steps to meet the needs of people from protected groups where they are different from the needs of other people. And also encouraging people from protected groups to participate in public life or in other activities where their participation is disproportionately low. In judging the quality of teaching, learning and assessment, one of the criteria that inspectors must evaluate is the extent to which equality and diversity is promoted through teaching and learning. To make this judgment, inspectors will evaluate how well teaching, learning and assessment promotes equality, supports diversity, and also tackles discrimination, victimisation, harassment, stereotyping or bullying. Inspectors will also evaluate how staff use materials and teaching methods that foster good relations and are sensitive to and promote equality of opportunity. Which brings us on to incorporating FREDIE in the classroom. So against the backdrop of an inclusive organisation culture such as the WEA, there's a great deal that can be done to promote FREDIE principles during curriculum design at a classroom or lesson level. I'm very conscious that we've only got a very small space of time to touch upon ED&I and FREDIE, so I have ensured that what we're discussing today, there's additional resources that will be contained within the Tutor Hub that can further support any learning in relation to this. So inclusive teaching and learning is about weaving equality, diversity and inclusion for all into your course design, into planning and also delivery. It values the diversity of all learners and aims to draw on their skills, knowledge, experiences and understanding to enhance the learning experience. Promoting equality, diversity and inclusion in the classroom helps to ensure that each learner is able to learn in an environment where all aspects of their identities are recognised and respected, and where they feel safe and secure. By explicitly teaching about the importance of ED&I and modelling commitment to it, education providers are instrumental in empowering learners to live their lives in a way that is respectful, it's tolerant and it's inclusive. So what I'd like to look at over the next few slides is different strategies that can be adopted within the classroom, looking at the representation in the resources used, any adaptations required in the classroom, really celebrating the diversity of our learners and being mindful of the language used in the classroom by ourselves, but also by our learners as well. So when we're considering the resources that we use from an ED&I or FREDIE perspective, do the resources that you use within your classroom reflect diversity? And do you ever stop to evaluate the resources that are used from an inclusion lens and then aim to further improve the inclusivity of these resources? And different strategies that could be adapted could be looking at the stories shared with learners. So are they representative of a range of identities, circumstances and cultures? In terms of the visuals used, do they reinforce gender stereotypes? So for a female hairdresser or a male mechanic, are a range of skin colours represented in the visuals, and do people feature? When we're looking at developing class assignments and activities, you look at the diversity in the pronouns that are used in those assignments, the names that are used, and also the scenarios or features. And these are probably things that you're doing already, but if not, they're different strategies that can be adapted. And they're relatively small and simple tweaks that can improve the inclusivity of your resources. When we're looking at classroom adaptations, good teaching practice should include a variety of teaching and assessment methods, as well as accessible resources to ensure that all learners can access the learning opportunities driven by the actual needs of that individual learner. The SEND Code of Practice requires all teachers to differentiate and personalise teaching and learning to meet the needs of learners with special educational needs and or disabilities. So when you're supporting learners with SEND, you might include strategies such as providing instructions and information verbally, but also in writing as well to assist different learner needs. So if you're providing verbal instructions and information that you intend to give in written formats, doing this before delivery will particularly help learners who are hearing impaired or who have difficulty remembering or sequencing things to keep up. So your neurodiverse learners. In addition, you should also provide written instructions and information verbally, which will allow learners who are visually impaired or who have difficulty reading to better understand what is required. Providing materials in a variety of different formats to suit different learners' needs would also be seen as adaptation in the classroom to support our learners. So what you could be looking at there is incorporating audio recordings into your classroom materials, looking at ensuring that closed captions are used, and also increased font size where required. When you're assessing and considering the physical learning environment, whether it's a physical or virtual learning space, you need to ensure that that space is accessible, it's flexible, and where appropriate, reflective of our student diversity. Looking at celebrating diversity, by supporting learners to celebrate diversity, they'll have a better understanding of others. Not only can it allow learners to understand equality for all, meaning equal opportunities, but also equity, meaning to provide the tool for people to succeed when coming from different places in life. And a really good starting point for that is the utilisation of the WEA ED&I calendar, which is published on our website. So the 2023 calendar has highlight months, spotlight days within each month throughout the year, and it's an opportunity to celebrate different festivals and events throughout the year, and it can be a real starting point within the classroom and an opportunity to celebrate the diversity of our learners. You can provide opportunities for students to work interactively in diverse and mixed groups, and also really utilise appropriate current news events, so promoting healthy discussions and debates by referring to contemporary issues to determine your students' views and understanding of various situations. And finally, just touching upon language that's used in the classroom. As educators, we would never use language that we know to be offensive or unacceptable, but sometimes we might not recognise the implications of certain phrases or terminology. Because language evolves through time, you might not always get it right, but it's important to make the effort to model language that is as inclusive as possible. So for example, rather than sit down guys, you would opt for sit down everyone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. An option instead could be good morning class. And we wouldn't say the reason we celebrate Easter, we would use the reason some people celebrate Easter instead. Just to touch very briefly upon pronouns, and there is more information in the additional resources, which also includes a really good video from a session that was run earlier in the year with staff, where a member of staff shares their lived experience in relation to the pronouns that they choose to use. So a person's name and pronouns are an important part of their identity. And when we use gendered language such as girls and boys or ladies and gentlemen, it can be alienating for gender non-conforming and gender diverse students. And we avoid this by using vocabulary such as students, class, or everyone, which is much more inclusive. So just to conclude this morning's session on ED&I and FREDIE, in terms of moving forward in developing your knowledge and understanding of ED&I, there will be access to ED&I related resources on the Tutor Hub, and also when the intranet, soon to be launched intranet is launched in the coming weeks, there'll be ED&I pages with resources on there that you can use from a tutor perspective. If you have any questions or require any support or want to run something past the ED&I working group that you think may help support learners, or additional resources that you would like to access, please do email the ED&I email address, which is on the screen now, and give us some feedback. What do you need? What would you like to see, whether that's as a tutor or as a member of staff? And in terms of continuing ED&I focused continuing professional development, there are a lot of websites such as ACAS, Investors in Diversity, CIPD, that have free resources on webinars on relevant ED&I issues, such as unconscious bias, privilege, and being an ally. And I'll include the links to that within the Tutor Hub as well. So just to conclude the presentation now, I'm going to stop sharing my screen to give us the opportunity. We'll have about 5 to 10 minutes to ask any questions that you might have in relation to this morning's session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tracy. So I can see that Ali has a hand up. Ali,
yeah, Ali. Ali, you're just on mute.
Sorry, I just realised that. Just put my camera back on. It's not so much a question as an observation. That something else that might be worth considering that's actually really easy, which is to think about names and pronunciation. Your name is very important to you. It's, you know, it's how you want to be identified in the world. So, and of course we have an increasingly diverse range of cultural names that are coming to us. So I think it's always worth checking with somebody when you come across a name you're not used to just to check how they pronounce it, and then remember that, because you know, it's one of those things that can be really upsetting for somebody if you repeatedly call them by an inaccurate name. And I just think it's worth adding to your list of things that you know, when you talk about not using guys and stuff like that, I think that name thing is also very important.
Absolutely, Ali, that's a really good observation. Thank you very much. I didn't see who put their hand up next, so I'm going to kind of call out who I can see on the screen, if that's okay, unless you saw Justina.
I think it's Rosie.
Okay, Rosie.
Hiya, it's just a request. I couldn't read the slides because of the colour of the text on the background image. Could you possibly put up a set without the image? It would make life a lot easier. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Rosie. Joe?
Again, not so much a question as an observation following on from what Ali said. Yes, about the question of names. Now, obviously, whenever I get the WA register, I get a set of names. However, there may not always be the name that the student wants to be recognised by. So I have started actually asking the students, what do you want to be called? Because, for instance, if you were going for my full name, please don't call me unless I've annoyed you. It's actually Joyce. But I don't want to be known as Joyce. So I think that's the other thing. You know, when you get your register, it is worth asking your students, this is what I have down as your name on the register. What do you like to be called? Because sometimes it is a completely different name.
Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you.
Yeah.
Liz?
Yeah. So I'm just wondering if we could put this EDI calendar into all Canvas tiles.
I don't know how Canvas tiles work. I don't mind adding it to the resource hub, or is there a way to add it to the Canvas tiles, Justina?
You can add it into the tutor training hub in your EDI section. So this is how the resources could be also available. But for all add resources, we've got special section in tutor training hub that you will be able to access after this event. So you will get link to all the resources from today as soon as we are ready to publish it, as soon as we prepare the videos that are being recorded as well. So it will be probably straight after Easter break. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Justina. I understand that, but I think that, you know, to have it as a standard piece of information in the Canvas blueprints would be really useful for all tutors, and it would underline how important the organisation feels this is.
Thank you, Liz. I will speak to David about it and with the quality and performance team, and we will see what we can do about it. Thank you very much for your feedback. It's really appreciated. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Sorry, Sally?
Hi, I teach lip reading, so it's nice to hear that people are wanting to use captions. A lot of students won't tell you that they have hearing loss, and they won't ask you to be able to access the caption. So it's really nice to know that people are considering that.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you. Judy?
Hi. Just picking up on what somebody said before. We need to model it, and we need to model it in these sessions by not producing resources that people can't read on screen. There's a really big problem with the green that's used. For anybody who has visual impairment, for anybody who has colour blindness, anything like that, it's going to be black and white. It really has. It was very, very difficult to read those screens. There was too much information crammed into them, which made them extremely difficult to read, and the colour made them very difficult to read. As you can see, I'm wearing these. I'm on the over 60s brigade, and my sight isn't as good as it was. So it's a really big thing that is very easy for people to consider. Is what are you putting up on screens? Are you trying to cram too much in? Is it actually legible? And a lot of the resources I've seen aren't.
Okay, thank you, Judy. I'll take that into consideration when I present in the future at the development days, and when I include the slide pack in the tutor resource hub, I'll ensure that there's a black and white copy as well, rather than in the green text.
Thank you. Gillian, sorry.
Yeah, I just want to ask about dyslexia and ADHD, because I'm now getting lots and lots of students on my courses with dyslexia and ADHD. The first thing that they want is a recording of the session, which we can't do at the moment because of legal restrictions. I am thinking about, you know, could I sort of just record the PowerPoint? And sometimes I do record it separately from the session because they need this for processing. It takes them a longer time to process the information. So that would be, you know, some solution to that would be welcome. Also, I think a sort of resource pack for most tutors on, because you've also got, when you've got assessed qualifications, quite a lot of these people really probably would fare a lot better if they could speak for their assignments with the awarding bodies. But I think this is something that needs to be organised not on a one-by-one basis, but as an organisation with the awarding bodies to say, look, we are getting more people with ADHD and dyslexia. Can we, as a whole organisation, come to some sort of agreement about maybe having more spoken communications? And also, because they're adults, many of these people do not have a statement. They've lived with it, they've managed with it, but then when it comes to qualifications, it's a barrier to them. So just raise the point.
Thank you. That's a really good point, and I'll take away. I brought down what you've said there, and I'll carry on the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Gillian.
Thank you. Hazel.
Thank you. I would like to echo what the last two speakers have just said. I have actually been diagnosed with ADHD at the tender age of 48, and then went on to get several first-class modules under my belt in philosophy, so that was nice. And thinking back to my student days, I was told when I was 16 I'd never make university, so there we go. I would suggest, I'm a very visual learner, but I think everybody has to figure out, you know, what's best, obviously. The thing about the coloured backgrounds, and I've been seeing all of the comments on the coloured backgrounds, it might make more sense to find a way of allowing people to download these presentations onto their own devices, so then they would have accessibility settings on their devices and would be able to change the colour of the font and the background to what suited them, because I think it's going to be very difficult. All the backgrounds for dyslexia and things like that are all different for everybody. It's a completely individual thing, and I would love recordings of things. I would love recordings of speaking personally. That really helps. So that's my observation.
Thank you, Hazel. That's a really good suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that we've got only 2 more minutes in this session, and then we need to have 10-minute break before the e-safety session. So we might have enough time for one, perhaps 2 questions. Okay, Kevin.
Oh, okay. There's a question with no answer, so that might be quick. I'm thinking about what's meant by zero tolerance of discrimination. And I'm going to suggest that as a teacher, I discriminate. And zero tolerance implies that somewhere someone is able to decide when we're discriminating, when we're not. For me, the teaching has been a learning process. And I discovered the way in which I discriminate and the way in which it can be destructive and way it sometimes may be helpful through interaction with students. Anything that has a zero tolerance implies that somehow somebody is able to have already as predetermined when we discriminate and when we don't. It's such a it's part of the learning process. So I think anything that comes up with zero tolerance is dangerous.
I think it's more about the word discrimination. I think what you're talking about there is equity. You're showing equity towards your learners and recognizing that actually not everybody is at the same place and different people need different things, rather than discriminating against their needs.
Well, discriminating positively and negatively as you discover the diversity. But I'm just going to suggest that diversity is something that isn't as simple as some form of labeling, neurodiverse, neurotypical, however you wish to divide people up. It's the range of diversity is such that to have a zero tolerance is not helpful.
I think we're talking about the negative discrimination though, aren't we, rather than the positive, the equity that we show towards our learners.
It's ongoing. Just raising the question.
Thank you, Kevin. I think that it's such an important thing that you touched upon here, and all the comments that were mentioned in this session are opening so many new discussions. So thank you very much for that. It's great that we've got this opportunity during the ad events to raise those questions and share and move things forward. Thank you very much for your time, and we will see you in about 9 minutes in the e-safety session. Thank you, and please make sure you've got a short break for a cup of tea. and see you at